Hey everyone, if you like combat sports, martial arts, or everything else in general, from anime to gaming, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button of the Drew Experience to raise the bar of the community in martial arts and 20% of everything else. And with that, the show is brought to you by three things. Karate Tips and Tricks, KRT, the largest online growing dojo where senseis Wesley Jansen and Darren Stringer are bringing together the minds of everybody, whether you do kickboxing, karate, taekwondo, kyokushin, in order to raise the bar of martial arts and bring the community together during these difficult times. KRT, Tips and Tricks, where the community is fastly growing. The show is also brought to you by Kyokushin Shuffle Podcast with Patrick Pinto, Sensei Patrick Pinto, and his ebook, Forever the Student, picking the greatest minds of Kyokushin, kickboxing, and other martial arts to see how they excel at their craft. And lastly, the show is finding a good mixed martial arts manager is very hard today. Luckily, Moments Management with Nima Safapur and his team are the team I would always recommend. Nima's team has clients such as Alex Gustafson, Gegard Mousasi, Costello Van Stennis, Bea Maliki, and Pani Kianzad, amongst others, where their team will teach you how to invest your money, save it, and understand the fight window while you are competing. Moments Management, where quality and care come first. And without further ado, this is the Drew Experience, the show that's 80% combat sports and 20% everything else. On this Sunday, rare Sunday, I'm joined by two absolute legends. So you know what? I don't want to introduce them. I want them to introduce themselves. So who wants to go first, guys?
Adam.
Adam Caplan. Andy and I are dear friends from a long, long time ago. I have a podcast, A Unanimous Decision, where we discuss boxing, MMA. You could catch me on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and also personal trainer and boxing coach to the everyday man and woman. And glad to be on the Drew Experience once again, baby.
Oh my God. How am I going to make this even better? So Wesley Jansen from KRT Tips and Tricks. Dojo Hokori Mayo is my school in Holland. Training in the NK IFK. Obviously, you know us from the KR Talks and all of the KRT sessions we do online. And the beautiful, beautiful words I think Drew says in nearly every podcast. Currently, we kind of make his show happen as well. So thanks for your words. Thanks for having me again. I think this is the fourth time.
The third time. Adam is the second time. So guys are breaking records here. You guys are like the short notice or the contract signed for a podcast camp. We make quality happen.
Yes, sir.
I'll wait.
All right, guys. So today, it's not an interview. It's more of a conversation about, say, Kyokushin, Dutch kickboxing, and Muay Thai kickboxing, and how they all work together, whether it's in MMA or, say, K1 or Glory. Adam, you've actually, you want to shock the world because you're not only a boxer, but you've actually had experience in Thai boxing. Would you like to share what that is?
Yeah, so in 2014, I hopped on a plane and went to Chiang Mai and started training at a Team Quest Thailand. And, you know, my first experience into combat sports. And after 3 months, we had signed me up for a fight. We went off to a small village about 45 minutes out from Chiang Mai and called Lamphun. Had my first Thai fight in a Thai festival, and rest was history. Got hooked up with the guys again the following year, had a second fight against a guy with like over 40, 50 fights. So not sure how that one went for me, but definitely had a lot of fun in there. And then, you know, after a couple of knee surgeries, playing rugby for 10 years, etc., I decided, you know what, I'm just going to stick with one, just going to stick with boxing. And that's what's brought me forward here today.
Yeah. And Wesley, not only are you a sensei in Kyokushin, but you also have an extensive kickboxing background too.
Yeah. I've done a few fights in kickboxing in Holland. I actually trained in Thailand as well. Never had the pleasure to fight there because I was like a 9 or 10-year-old kid when I was in Thailand. But they absolutely loved me there. I wasn't Naksum Cow, but you know how they are with people from Europe and the rest of the world. So no, yeah, it's really good. I've been training kickboxing, training Kyokushin for 26 years now, and think, kickboxing for 24, and I absolutely love the game. I think it makes you such a complete fighter if you do all sorts of things. Obviously, the main focus have always been karate for me, but yeah, I love to do a bit of kickboxing and stuff like that. Did a bit of MMA as well, so as we can, it's really good.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I've done Kyokushin, I've done Taekwondo for 6 months. Then I've done Kyokushin for about 4.5 years. Competed 3 times, once provincially. Second time was a Canadian tournament where I placed 3rd in both tournaments, and then my last tournament was provincial where I placed 2nd. So I mean, I'm not as accomplished, fight going over there, and with the accolades. But hey, you know what? Anyone that steps in the arena, it's like you earn the respect of anyone that does this, whether it's for amateur or pro.
Very true.
So I wanted to bring you guys on today because we also wanted to talk about kickboxing. And one thing that I've noticed is there's always this debate where it's Muay Thai or then there's Dutch style. So I want to ask Adam first. Adam, what do you think? How do you feel? Is it that Muay Thai transitions very well into the K1 and MMA?
Well, I mean, for obvious reasons, you're going to be a more well-rounded fighter. You're going to be prominent in leg kicks. You're going to be stronger in the clinch. You're also going to be able to use your elbows as tools as well. So for obvious reasons, that's why having strong Muay Thai in MMA or K1, it's prominent. Now, obviously, the clinch in K1 doesn't really translate well because there's a small amount of time that you can clinch. And that's why we've seen, for example, when Simon Marcus fought Joe Schilling on Lion Fight, Joe Schilling had a really hard time, because of the clinch due to Simon Marcus. But then when the fight happened over at Glory, you saw that it was more in Schilling's realm, a little bit more of that. It's funny, they call it Dutch kickboxing, but then the Americans also have a little bit of their own American Muay Thai system where it's actually more similar to K1 than it is to Muay Thai. So, those are my obvious reasons.
Wesley, what do you want to add to that? Like with the Muay Thai and Dutch style, like why they're somewhat different?
Yeah, I always like the fact that it's called, anywhere in the world it's called a Dutch style kickboxing, and over here in Holland it's just kickboxing. You know what I mean? you have the difference between kickboxing or Muay Thai, and then I'll always love the fact that when people say, yeah, I'm a Muay Thai fighter, I was like, so how many times have you been kneed in the face, or how many elbows have you worked? And then they're like, well, I'm not doing that. So you're doing kickboxing then? I had to bring this out here because I always like that little discussion. But I really think both of the styles have their great benefits. If you look at indeed a Muay Thai fighter who is able to transform him or herself into a MMA fighter is going to be so well rounded with the elbows, with the standing clinch and stuff like that. And then if you look at the Dutch style kickboxers, when they transform into the full stand-up fight, the way they go in and out of their opponents, the way they move so well in the ring. Oh, it's just lovely to see. So I'm anything Adam said, in all fairness, I agree. So it's not really a discussion. I just think he's right.
Adam, do you want to add anything to like also with Muay Thai? Because I mean, you were there. You've also seen some fighters. Who was one Thai fighter that stands out to you today that you feel everybody should watch?
Well, I mean, realistically, if you look at all of the top Muay Thai guys, aside from Sanchai and Buakaw, there's hundreds of them that people should be watching. So it's kind of hard to label someone off the cuff. Personally for me, a near and dear one is Piak Mistatad, who fights in one championship now as an MMA fighter because I watched him train, who's a strawweight. So that to me is somebody who sticks out on more of like a, now he's international, but at the time he was more on a domestic level. So, I mean, realistically, that's a hard one for me to answer because there's hundreds and hundreds of them that nobody knows about.
Yeah, that's very true. Because there's loads great fighters from Thailand, and that's funny because you said, well, I was fighting this guy who had like 40 or 50 fights. That's so normal over there, you know what I mean? Sometimes you see in UFC and MMA, you see like the greats, they have like 35, 36 fights, you know what I mean? And then I was like, oh wow, if you go to Thailand, 36 fights, you're
You're a rookie.
yeah, and you're probably 8 years old at that time when you've done 36 fights. So there's a few really good ones. But yeah, I think Burkal for me was probably the ultimate Thai fighter. Obviously, Saenchai is amazing, but he does so many funny things and so many cool stuff, and I don't think there's anyone else who is like him. But if you look at like Thai style fighting, you think of Burkal, in my opinion.
Another powerhouse when it comes to kickboxing with Thai style would be Australasia, like Australia, you know, because Australia has a rich Kyokushin scene too, as with Patrick Pinto and amongst like Sam Greco from K1. But we're seeing guys come out of there such as Brad Riddell, Izzy Adesanya, and Israel just takes the Thai style and like makes it like his own version, like it's like not textbook. And what are your thoughts on a superstar like him coming out of that region as well?
Well, I think that it's a big deal. I mean, obviously, Australia and New Zealand are, I wouldn't say they're big countries compared to where we are in Canada. You know, we would label them as quite small countries. So to have prominent fighters come out of a smaller country, it did develop a craze similar to what happened with Ireland. You know what I mean? So I think it's fantastic for the sport. You definitely see how on a domestic level, it's also helped grow MMA. And also, though, man, lest we forget, Australia has a tremendous Muay Thai scene. You know, that John Wayne Parr is not the only person who's at the helm of that. There are a lot of different other fighters in Australia that could put in that fucking work. So it's a little bit of an, you know, I didn't answer your question completely because for obvious reasons, it's great.
It's a big question. Yeah. Wesley, what do you want to add into there?
No, if you've mentioned a few names, and obviously Izzy is probably one of the superstars right now. But if you look at the fact that a lot of Australians, New Zealand guys, they've already entered the ring like ages ago, you know, and did very well. So as Adam said, I think it's really great to see and cool to see that out of the smaller countries and such. It's the same in Holland because I think we're way smaller than you guys and way smaller than Australia and New Zealand. But that's we can provide so many good fighters in one style. It's amazing. And even if you look at Holland, we had some great like Dutch style kickboxers, but we also had some great Muay Thai fighters like Ramon Dekkers and so many others. But
yes,
you know, Dekkers probably.
And if I could just add to that, one thing that I feel that the North American countries lack, like Canada and the US, is when a Dutch fighter goes on, you're never going to see a guy from Holland booing his own fighter. When a guy from New Zealand comes on, you're never going to see him booing his own fighter. The Americans and even the Canadians are probably the only ones that will boo their own countrymen, you know, or won't really get behind them, especially if we have two Americans going at it. There's always one we're getting behind more than the other. But I just feel that the reason why we're bringing up smaller countries is also because of the pride and the tradition that comes with it and the history.
Yeah, and that's where you take the Ireland story when Conor stood up. All of Ireland stood up, and you know, there's so much talent in a country like that. But then it doesn't matter who is there. Everyone will raise the flag and everyone will go for it. So that's I really like that, and that's the thing as well. If you look at like foreigners going to the country of Thailand and fight there, you will see the atmosphere change when a guy from abroad will fight a Thai guy. Yes, they will always cheer for the Thai, but then when they see the guy from Holland, the guy from Canada, the guy from New Zealand or Australia, they'll be like, oh my God, you got some big cojones for being
Yeah.
here. Oh, let's see what's gonna happen. I love that.
Exactly. And also, Wesley, you could agree that a quote unquote Farang who's able to fight like a true Nak Moy is something that they hold very near and dear and precious, like Youssef Bouhamin, Bouganim from Belgium, going over to Thailand when he's 16, being Omnoy champion, being Rajamin champion, being one of the most prominent middleweights in the country. And they also respected him because he was able to fight like a Thai. So just to compliment that when they could see a foreigner who could fight like a true Thai fighter, forget about it.
Yeah, you're the real deal then.
Same with Ramon Deckers. I mean, if you remember, Wesley, Wesley's our age. Like, I think we're all early 90s kids. So but in 1991, national pride was on the line where Ramon had to show that a Farang could compete with the Thais, and it was broadcast not in North America but around the world, like in Asia and Europe, because this was a big deal. And at Lumpini Stadium, Ramon actually bested the Thai, and one of the most powerful ones ever, and that was a big deal for the pride of Holland. How do you feel that fight, Wesley, in history, for combat sports history, helped show that the Dutch can stand with the Thais?
I think it's not only for the Dutch that was a big win. You know what I mean? It's especially for a lot of the foreigners. It was because Ramon wasn't the first one, but a lot of foreigners went there, and they didn't all do properly, or some of them got their ass handed back. So that was the moment that they kind of broke the whole the magic about the Thai fighters. You know what I mean? That moment was for so many people the moment that they thought, so we can beat them, and in a vicious way as well. And if you look at Ramon and Rob Kaman, those guys, the things they did there, it was amazing. And then if you look at Ramon, his fighting style was so incredible. It was he's a legend for sure, but for a reason as well.
And then what I also want to bring up too is because sometimes this is something that Adam and I were talking about. So I'm going to give what I think my 2 cents is here on this, because Wesley, you're more versed in this too with your 26 years. Adam and I were always talking about how Kyokushin can work in MMA or how it works in kickboxing. And I always say, well, if you look at Kyokushin, it's the one karate style that has low leg kicks, whereas Shotokan and say Kempo doesn't. So there's the reason why someone with a Kyokushin background such as Rico Verhoeven, amongst others, it's like that, parlay it into MMA or kickboxing. I think the low leg kicks make it very easy, and it goes with the rules of say Glory or Dutch. What do you feel about that?
Well, if you look at the Kyokushin, the stand-up game we use is like when you go to the old school styles like Shotokan and Okinawa style of fighting, they have a very big stance. So when you get kicked in the legs and you're obviously not used to this, you will, your balance is not going to be great and stuff like that. And there's a few fighters who are amazing with that background, but because of the smaller stance and the great stand-up game we have within Kyokushin, it makes it really good to combine with a Muay Thai style or the Dutch kickboxing style. And obviously, the Dutch kickboxing style started off with people who all did Kyokushin, like Jan Plas, Tom Haring from Czechoslovakia, there's a few other names who in that stage, in that era, in the 70s, went to Thailand and thought, oh my God, this is amazing. We can make something of this, you know what I mean? And then all of them, they did Kyokushin. So in there, they took so many things out of Kyokushin into the Dutch kickboxing style. That is, it's just a very natural. It feels very natural for a good Kyokushin guy, good fighter.
What do you want to add to that, Adam? Like, based on what you just feel, like, how do you feel about?
Well, I mean, it is obvious that one way or another, all of these arts kind of became intertwined and started taking a little bit from each other. But one thing, going back to what you said about Ramon Deckers is the Thais have a certain way of sparring and they have a certain way of fighting. And the foreigners also bring other advantages to the table as well. They're a little bit less likely to let the fight kind of build the heat up. They'll kind of come right out the gate in the first round, whereas in traditional Muay Thai, usually the first round is a feeling out process. And by the fourth and fifth round, these guys are going balls out. Whereas the foreigners brought that, no, let's fucking go at them in the first round. The foreigners also brought harder sparring. If you're sparring Thai versus Thai, it's a very playful and technical manner, which, you could ask Wesley, is the exact opposite of what they are doing in Holland. I mean, I would believe that every sparring session in Holland is a world championship fight to an extent. So, one way or another, these martial arts have crossed paths, and you do see a lot of trends, such as Wesley, guys who have not only been successful in Kyokushin, but have also tested themselves in Muay Thai and in K1 style. And, it's all about it. It's like mixed martial arts. You're taking what you can from all of it. You're mixing it into a potion. You take what you need, you disregard the rest, and you move forward. So.
It's interesting. Very interesting. Who would you say, based on what you've watched and what you've seen, who do you think has the best low leg kicks? I'm gonna give you both a choice of three. I'll go this. They could be three fighters of any era, best low leg kicks in any style, whether it's Dutch, Muay, or Kyokushin. For me, I would have to say one of the best low leg kicks for Dutch would have to be Ernesto Hoost. In Muay Thai, I would have to say, from what I've seen, Bukawao. I always mispronounce his name. And in Kyokushin, I would have to, for my choice in Kyokushin for the low leg kicks, has to be one of the Russians. I think it's Osipov. It's Viktor Osipov. Like, that's those are my three for the best low leg kicks. What about you, Wes? Or Adam, whoever wants to go first.
Go ahead, Wes. Go ahead.
I was hoping you'd go. It's a really good question. I really like it. It's a very hard question. In the Dutch kickboxers, Ernesto is a very good one, but probably because of his timing. I mean, every time he was fighting these guys and they put their leg down, just as they put it down, he whacked the leg. Mr. Perfect. But I think I'd go for the best low kicks is probably, I'd say, Rob Kaman in his glory days. Or Ramon Deckers. It's it's a very close one. I don't know his name because that's the problem. They all kind of look alike. But there was a Thai fighter who he went to Europe so many times, and he fought in the It's Showtime era. So there was this guy had some vicious kicks, like body kicks and low kicks. I try and think about his name, but this guy was amazing. He was I think he was like a 70 to 75 kilogram fighter. He was so sharp. And
Jansen Klei? Because Jansen Klei was a heavier Thai.
Jansen Klei, that was his name. Yeah. He was I thought he was like around 75 kilograms, but he might be a little bit over there because I think he was fighting guys like Ryan Simpson, Szczepan Veselic, and guys like that. And they were like under 80 kilograms fighters. But that guy's, his kicks, oh my God, his kicks are so vicious.
Yeah, he fought John Wayne Parr about 3 times. So, they're more or less around the same weight class, I would say. as
Yeah,
to the other fighters that you were.
fighting Nicky Holston in a few weeks, I think. So that must be just under 80 kilograms.
Yeah.
I think his name was Jansen. You know, like back in the days, you didn't have internet, and then you went to like a kickboxing event, and there was always a big poster and stuff like that. I always nicked one with me, and I had like loads of posters and stuff like that. They were always on there, like all covered in belts and like the flowery the flowery necklaces and stuff like that. But yeah, that guy was amazing. And then in Kyokushin, I'd say Sergey Osipov was really, really strong and really well-rounded, so he was really good. But then you know of him as well, Drew. Max Dedick.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the legend.
That guy was he was really, really, really strong as well, and he had some very sharp techniques, and especially for a Russian in that time, in like the 1998 to 2004-5 era when he was in the IFK. I met him a few times, and then his kicks were phenomenal. His punches, he was so strong, but he went into IQ1. He also went into K1 fighting, tried to do some stuff like right there as well. That man is a legend, man. I really like him. So I'd say Max. But then if you like go into the Kyokushin books, Kurosawa is then Mr. Low Kick. So you know, but I've never in real life seen this happen. And I was a little small 10-year-old at the side of the tatami, at the side of the area, hearing Max whacking the kicks, and then that really stood by me. So, but yeah, I think Kurosawa was amazing as well. A few more.
Well, now how am I going to follow that one up? Jeez. For obvious reasons, I'm going to have to blanket this statement with Dustin Poirier. That's definitely the guy with the best leg kicks in the game.
Yeah, MMA is allowed to. You're allowed to, Adam.
I'm just joking. I'm being sarcastic. Look, I gotta go with Ramon Dekkers. I mean, anybody who has had their ankle fused to their foot to be able to still get back in the ring is a fucking legend. So I'm definitely gonna go with Ramon Dekkers. On the Muay Thai side, you know, Yodson Clay comes to mind. Even if I were to take a Farang fighter, you know, somebody like Youssef Buhaman, you know, definitely somebody who's beating the shit out of some legs. And on the Kyokushin side, I mean, I can't pretend like I'm well versed in the sport. So I'm gonna go with Mohammed Chek. That's what I'm gonna go with.
Yeah, I was sharing a lot of Mohammed's videos with Adam because, like, at first, like funny thing was that it was like I was when I was getting into Kyokushin, I told Adam, like, this is my coach, and Adam's like, yeah, this guy knows how to low leg kick. So yeah, but yeah, that's good. Another crazy fighter I would have to say, I would have to be who is it in kickboxing? Badr Hari, like the ultimate bad boy.
Yeah, Badr, he's great.
Yeah, what do you?
Yeah,
no way.
Yeah, well, there was a big seminar and stuff like that, and he was teaching there. And then I had a few seminars of great guys and stuff like that. But the thing Badr did, he was so efficient. You know what I mean? It's like only when you throw a jab or a cross, the things he told you there. He was there with Big Mike, obviously, and then the insights they gave me there was amazing. And I've always been a fan of like the bad boy like he is. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can say outside of the ring you should be a gentleman and stuff like that. But that's the thing. He's real. If he doesn't like you, he doesn't like you. If he does like you, it's gonna be the same. If you do something wrong to him, you're gonna get in trouble. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, but he's been to prison and then he had a fight. Yeah, but they were provoking him, and yeah, he shouldn't have done that. All of those things. But in the ring, the man was so complete. He's been such a great fighter, and obviously when I had the seminar with him, when I had the training with him, it all was I then not knew why he was so efficient in the ring, why he was so good in the ring, his insights, the way he looks at stuff. It's, for me, he is probably one of the best kickboxers that's ever stepped foot in the ring.
And he's also considered, a heavier fighter. So it makes it even more exciting. And I believe that the Moroccans have brought a flair and intensity to the sport of kickboxing and Muay Thai that only few countries could match, such as Holland, perhaps even a little bit of France as well. MMA being banned in France certainly helped propel boxing and Kyokushin and K1 and Muay Thai and stuff like that. So, definitely. And, a lot of Moroccans will move on to France, to find a better life, etc. So definitely, Moroccan Muay Thai, France Muay Thai, Dutch kickboxing, all of these things have complemented Muay Thai as well on a global stage, for the greater good. And it's also given opportunities for the Thais to come over to Europe, because it's very difficult to leave the country or the kingdom of Thailand. It's very difficult. And the only way that they're going to make prominent money is if they go and fight in these K1 tournaments in Japan, or they go to Europe and fight in these K1 tournaments. So, that to me is one of the biggest things that I've enjoyed the most about kickboxing and Muay Thai is the diversity. I really feel that as a guy who likes boxing, we've only really been able to appreciate boxing on a global scale or an international scale in the Olympics, or so when a British fighter now is fighting an American.
Yeah. What you say about like the Thais coming to Europe, different conversation though, but it's still about the fights and stuff. Like the first time I saw a Thai fighter, I was like, why is he not boxing? Is he only kicking? Only, like in the 90s, the boxing of most Thai fighters was rubbish. It was super bad, you know what I mean? But still, they managed to win fights because of their style, and then in like tournaments like Too Hot to Handle, the beginnings of It's Showtime and stuff like that. They brought something else, but that's like later on in a later stage when I got a bit bigger and more well known about the fights. I thought, hey, we do the same when we're in Thailand, and all of the Western fighters who come to Thailand bring a lot more boxing, but still have to go all the way in the Thai style. And then when the bigger, like the big tournaments like K1, and then in the later stage the Glory, I was like, I always thought, all right, how would a Thai fighter do in these tournaments, because of not being as well rounded as a boxer. If you look at like Francisco Filho, Andy Hug, Globe Faitosa, Taizera from Kyokushin, who came in but didn't have the true boxing style the Dutch kickboxers had, and they always had a really hard time doing that. All of them except for Sammy Shield, who was 2 meters 13 centimeters. It's really hard. But then you saw like a change in the era, like the last 10, 15 years. A lot of the Thai fighters who come to Glory or who come into the bigger tournaments, they box a lot better. And then especially if you look at the European fighters going to, I'm saying European fighter, but I mean the Western fighters coming to Thailand, they really made their style, the Thai style, a lot more efficient as well. So it's been evolved in the last 10, 15 years, which is extremely good to see. And I just had to add that into this chat.
One kick that I really like, I mean, I've mentioned it before, is Globe Feitosa, like, who has like the question mark kick we see in mixed martial arts, and it's called the Mawashi Gari. It's in all karate styles. No one threw that kick better in heavyweight than Globe did. Like, he put out guys that I've never seen, that was like nothing, and he just come in and just starch him, and he's a legend for helping raise the bar for Kyokushin. Where do you think, Wesley, how do you feel Globe helped impact all the kickboxing styles for striking martial arts?
Well, the funny thing is like Globe was don't get me wrong, he was a great fighter in Kyokushin, but he's not in the likes of Francisco Filio, Andy Hug, and stuff like that. When he went into kickboxing, he made so many knockouts with that kick and his fighting style. I think that was his era. You know what I mean? He was that was the moment he excluded himself from the rest. And then if you look at Baitosa coming into K1 and being so successful, I think that a lot of Kyokushin karatekas or karatekas, not only Kyokushin, but a lot of karatekas kind of thought like, hey, this guy, he brings us back in the game. He makes it possible for us to make this change and to go and try it, and obviously in a very successful way as well. So I do think him knocking out so many people with that question mark kick, that was another run for a lot of fighters with who didn't do kickboxing to start that and try to be successful in a just a different sport.
Adam, what do you think? I could definitely show you a picture. So guys, I'm going to share my screen just so Adam can see who Globe was. So just hold on. Let me just see here. Okay. Share.
Is he Brazilian?
Yeah, he's Brazilian. You guys see my screen?
I know who he is.
Yeah.
He's
like
the
right
one
here.
who brings the question mark kick all the way up and then chops down.
Like right here. You see my screen? Boom.
Very good, Rich.
Very good. Get Big Daddy. And then I love when Globe does like the signature. Yeah.
And you could see there that he went for the teep, and then chances are he knew that his opponent would reach down again for that teep, and then he redirected it to the temple.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And this is how, the likes of even Donald Cerrone, who has the most head kick knockouts in the UFC. Some of them are attributed to the question mark kick.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say Stephen Wonderboy Thompson too, not a Kyokushin fighter, but he's an MMA fighter that has just represented all karatekas of regardless of the style in MMA. Because I think the problem is when you look at GSP, and this happens with Kyokushin, West, you could agree with me. Everybody looks to GSP because he has Kyokushin, but he never used Kyokushin in his MMA career. Maybe early when he won the belt the first time, but it's like he was a grappler after. So
that is like I'm not saying he's not a true Kyokushin guy, but like the guys who started off with Kyokushin and stayed there all the way, they wear the kanji as a tattoo. Some of them wear it on their chest, some of them on their arm. I have it on my leg and stuff like that. He wears karate, like he wears a kanji or kataka, I think it's kanji of karate. Which says something about him, because yes, he's been in Kyokushin, but I dare to say he's been in Kyokushin for only a small amount of time, and then obviously did a lot of other stuff and probably was successful in karate before he went into the UFC. And then his knowledge of fighting was so good, his IQ, his fight IQ was so good that he knew him as a person should not be standing up fighting against all of these other well-rounded kickboxers. So what am I gonna make myself? I'm gonna make myself a extremely good wrestler, an extremely good grappler, and that's the thing with GSP. Everything he does, he's gonna be awesome at it. You know what I mean? But he's, in my opinion, he's not the flag of Kyokushin into the UFC, or the flag of karate into the UFC. Yes, he has a background in there, but he never indeed really used it.
I would say that goes to Gerard Gordeau, who really used Kyokushin, because he went in as Savat, but there's reasons for that. That's for another podcast if we ever want to do part 2, which I'm sure we will. But Gerard Gordeau is the one, it's like I really, I have to tell people, if you really want to know where Kyokushin was used, it's the first ever UFC. Watch the kickboxer Gerard Gordeau, who's got a 9th Dan in Kyokushin, fight Taylor Tooley, the sumo wrestler.
Yeah. The funny thing is like I'm sorry, Adam.
Okay. I understand what you're saying, but I mean, look, the sport has evolved tremendously since UFC 1. So I don't really think that that Kyokushin approach would have been able to work in George St. Pierre's era. I mean, listen, I've got to take what George says at face value when he says that his Kyokushin has helped his jab and has helped his wrestling tremendously in terms of, you know, the subtle details of the footwork moving in and out. But you know, I got to take it at face value and trust him when he says that. But, you know, obviously the Kyokushin purists and practitioners of the sport will really be able to notice whether or not that was actually a prominence in his game. But I don't know, man. I mean, look, personally for me as a big GSP guy and me thinking he's done the greatest of all time, I definitely let him fly the flag. I mean, for now, at least, there's nobody better. So that's just me.
Yeah. No, I do understand what you say, man. And yes, his footwork was amazing. And yes, I don't want to take anything away from GSP because it's amazing.
Same here.
It still is. I think if he would have gone like back into fighting like a year or two, maybe 3 years ago, when did he fight Bisping? Was it 17?
2017, November 4th.
Yeah. You know, because you're like the baseball card man.
Yeah, that's what they call me. They call me like Mr. Adam could attest to that because back in our sleepaway camp, it used to be guys, Andy, ring off the stat for this hockey player, and I'd be like, okay, you got this many points at this season. I'm not good at it anymore, but Adam can back me on it. Now you can back me on that, Mr. Baseball hockey card.
Yeah, because you know your stats, man. You know your stats. But yeah, I don't want to take anything away from GSP, but it's like. In my opinion, the things I've seen of him in Kyokushin weren't that great. You know what I mean? There were a lot more people who were a lot better than him in the things I saw he did in Kyokushin. You know what I mean?
I love that you brought this up. This is something that I want to talk about. This is great because, you know, we talk about a guy like Nate Diaz who got into the ring with Andre Ward and we're like, wow, he has the best boxing in MMA and blah, blah, blah. But then when you talk to boxers and whenever you when you look at a martial artist who's a specialist in one sport and they critique MMA fighters, they always say like, yes, his Kyokushin is good for an MMA level, or his boxing is good enough for an MMA level, or his kickboxing is to an MMA level. So it's funny that you brought that up about GSP because the stigma is not only in jiu-jitsu or in wrestling or in boxing, but it is in Kyokushin as well. And I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. And the thing is, as I said before, I'm not taking anything away from him because if you look at the fact that he was average in Kyokushin on what I've seen. I've never been to Canada and trained with him. So maybe he's fucking awesome, you know what I mean? But what I've seen, he was average in Kyokushin. If you can be one of the greats, maybe the greatest fighter in the UFC of all times, how good is your fight IQ? How good do you understand the game? So that's why I'm a great fan of him. But is he, for me, the flag of Kyokushin into the UFC? Well, probably not. Okay. But that's because I've seen what he did in Kyokushin, and I was like, all right, I know a fair few people who do better. And then if you talk about Gerard Godot, yes, he's a master in his sports, and yes, he's done tremendous things, and yes, he's been very good in the 80s and stuff like that. And yes, he came into as a Safat guy, but then what he did, is like he used Kyokushin techniques, but then on the other hand, it was a street fight, man. UFC 1 was a street fight, and then you know the way he understand that the sumo guy would run into him, and the way that he backed down, hit him in the jaw and stuff like that. In all fairness, this wasn't really. He didn't show a lot of Kyokushin techniques except for a really good low kick on the face of Taylor Tully. You know what I mean? But and he even injured himself. So was it a good low kick? You know. But again, not taking anything away from Gerard, because the things he did, man, he's a legend. I love him for the person who he is. But so yeah, GSP is for me not really a Kyokushin guy, an amazing fighter with a Kyokushin background. Awesome.
Yeah, the specialist versus the mixed martial artist conversation is an endless conversation.
Yeah.
It really is. I really think, okay, so I want to ask you guys, when it comes to like specialists in terms of say, whether it's Muay Thai or karate, who would be the two best specialists in MMA that you have seen to date? I'm gonna go first. For me, I would have to say it's Stephen Wonderboy Thompson with how he's represented karate, and with that, regardless of the style, that's for karate specialist. For Muay Thai, it's a very tough conversation because you could say it. There's Cowboy Cerrone, there's Izzy, there's Anderson Silva. So in a tight race, I would have to go with Anderson. I think those are the two best specialist strikers I have ever seen in MMA.
So the question is for Muay Thai and
Karate. Yeah.
Look, you know what? I'm actually going to go against the grain here, and I'm going to rock with Machida. Machida has knocked.
Man, I was gonna have that.
Listen, Machida has gotten me off the couch going, whoa, way more times than Stephen Thompson has. I got to be honest. That's all. And in terms of a Muay Thai, look, this is going to sound fucked up, but some of the best Muay Thai I've actually seen in the UFC was from Matt Brown. Matt Brown's actually not good as a Muay Thai fighter in MMA. If you watch some of his UFC fights, how he's utilized the elbows when his opponent is up against the cage, I'm pretty impressed by it. I'm not ready to co-sign completely on Matt Brown as being my response, though. But, you know, if you would have said kickboxer, I would have just said Alistair Overeem. So,
yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. I was going to go with Machida because and I think that's his style is so fit. Like when you go back into the history, his karate style is so fit for a really good MMA fight. Like, you know, and he truly made it happen. And I think that's hard for Kyokushin guys, because Kyokushin already is like a mixture of styles. It's easier to look at a Kyokushin fighter and think, hey, that's a kickboxer. And with Machida, his style and the way he attacked, the way he defended, but also his attitude. His attitude in the ring. I can remember knocking someone out with a front kick, bowing to his opponent on the floor. I mean, that's karate. You know what I mean? That's karate for me. So I am gonna go with Machida. And for MMA and Muay Thai, because that is a bit of a hard question. I think I was gonna go with Cerrone, but then I'm thinking of I'd go for Cerrone now, because he still uses a lot of the Muay Thai style, and the way he you know his backhand back leg type of fighting, the way he uses his upper body in a different way. I'd say Cowboy is definitely one of the best Muay Thai style fighters who went into UFC. Also, if you look at the many fights he did, and he had so many fights in the UFC, kind of brings in the Muay Thai style as well, where
Yeah, and to add to what Wesley said, like I you know, it's hard for me to pick who's the best Muay Thai fighter in MMA, because I think that a lot of guys have shown great single performances of it. I mean, who could argue against Vanderlei Silva versus Rampage Jackson? I mean, if we're talking about a true display of a Muay Cow, which is a Muay Thai fighter who is predominantly using his knees and elbows in the clinch, that's a fucking Muay Cow performance right there. So it's hard, you know, it's hard to defer. And that's what I wanted to talk about before, when we were talking about how, when the foreigners come over with their boxing, a lot of the Thais just used to bring that fight into the clinch and fight more Muay Cow style. And that shit was over with. It was a wrap, baby. Switchblade elbows, knees, trips. People don't realize how many points you're scoring when you sweep the leg and the guy's legs go up underneath him and he falls on his head. Those takedowns in Muay Thai are worth more than probably takedowns in MMA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Vanderlei, what a vintage. Those Pride Wars, man. Yeah, I can't honestly, Pride had some of the best shows back in the day. Nothing ever, and I'll never forget the stare down between Crow Cop and Vanderlei.
Crazy. Yeah. The Pride era was really good. If you look at guys who competed in there, man, vicious.
Yeah.
Another
You had the greatest concoction of K1 wrestlers. You just had the best combinations of fighters coming from all around the world and into this melting pot of a division or a promotion rather.
The only thing I didn't like about the Pride is that they fought in the ring instead of the octagon.
I actually like the ring. I think that historically speaking, when you look back at Pride, if I imagine it in a cage, I feel like it took that allure because part of it was guys who from K1 like Alistair Overeem or whoever the case may be, Crow Cop, etc., are coming over to this sport. So it's still giving them a taste of that flavor. And then from the wrestling standpoint, there was no cage, right? It was just an open mat. So to me, it made sense.
Yeah, it was good. I just, there's something about the octagon. You know what I mean? There is something magical. The doors clicking in. You can't go out without being backed out of a stretcher or as the winner. You know what I mean? There's something magical about that.
It also has made the clinch. It also makes the clinch a lot more deadly when you don't have that little bit of space to maybe escape from the ropes or the flexibility of the ropes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and especially if you look like when the guys were down on their backs on the floor, trying to bring themselves out of the ring. That's one of the things I thought. Oh, that could have been, a lot more deadly.
Japan, like whether it was Pride, Risen. I mean, Wesley, you remember, I always talk about this with you because, we're big Gegard Mousasi fans. So you remember the time when Gegard fought Melvin Manhoof, like Dennis Kang, and then Jacare in 3 nights and one night. And it was we saw the best display of Dutch style martial arts because Gegard has a judo background, but he's got the kickboxing background too. And the way he beat Manhoof was just, you remember, I'm sure, right? That Risen tournament.
In all fairness, I would have thought Manu would have gonna in before the fight. I would have said, I think Manu's gonna win the fight with his deadly hands. You know what I mean? But he utilized it really well. Yeah.
Was this when Gegard fought for the Dream title?
Yeah, it was in 2008, and it was at the time when Gegard was considered the best fighter outside of the UFC, and it was when there was Strike Force, Risen, Dream, UFC, where you could go around Elite XC, and there was the one fight I wish we got was Anderson versus Gegard in that era.
Was Risen there already in that era?
No, it was Dream, actually. I stand corrected. It was Dream.
It was Dream, and also one of the big deals. Gegard Mousasi was one of the big deals to come out of that era, but Alistair Overeem was, when he was holding the Dream belt and the Strike Force belt, and what was that?
Good. Alistair was so good because
he was so good, but he was also so supplemented. At that time,
man. Yeah, it's crazy.
He's on the cabinet.
Oh, did he? That was in the UFC, right? When they catched him with 28 times the amount of testosterone that can be in your body.
Well, first they let him get away with it to end Brock Lesnar's run in the UFC, and then they started telling him all right, bring down the volume a bit, baby.
Because the thing is, I've seen Alistair Overeem fight as a young boy, as a small kid. I saw him fight in the 75 category.
Yeah.
He was don't get me wrong, he was ripped, and he was really his body looked really, really tight and good, but he was only 75 kilograms. His brother Valentin was already a big juiced up guy, and then the Reem, he was just on a roll, man. He was so good, but yeah, indeed, so juiced up as well.
You guys remember that UFC 141 going back in time, I mean, I always look at like 2011 had some of the best end of year cards, and three of them were Nick Diaz versus BJ Penn. Then it was I have to put in between there the first card on Fox, the Cain Velasquez versus JDS, because it was like the first time the UFC made it to national TV. So that's 4. 3, John Jones versus Machida, and then that Lesnar Overeem fight. Like, how, like, what do you guys remember about that? Because I'll tell you what I remember. I wasn't into MMA then. Like, I was more into hockey, but I was like a very, very, very casual, like extremely casual by definition. But I remember seeing the highlights of that, and I was like, holy fuck, someone's going to die tonight.
I remember thinking this fight shouldn't happen because anybody who was in tune with what was actually going on is that Lesnar had just had like 8 inches of his colon removed due to tuberculosis. So that fight happening, I wasn't really so keen on it. And then when the fight ended with body on top of that, it really just put the fucking icing on the cake that shit should not have happened at all. You know, and also that fight happened after Cain Velasquez, right?
Yeah, it happened after. It happened like 2 months after, a month and a half after he lost to Junior Dos Santos on November.
Listen, Shane Carwin kind of built the blueprint in terms of how to beat Lesnar, and that was constant pressure and constant punches to the face because it was obvious that Lesnar didn't necessarily like to get hit. Shane Carwin showed that blueprint, and then Cain put the stamp on it. And by then, I think that he was already 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and Overeem just knocked that shit out of the park.
Liver kick was vicious, though. Liver kick was amazing.
Sniped him. Another fight too, because Wesley, you and me are big John Jones fans.
Yeah,
UFC
man.
140. Yeah, you know, 10 years today. Youngest champ. I mean, 2 days ago, but I mean, Adam's kind of like in the middle with John Jones. I mean, he's but like Adam respects him, you know. But don't worry, Adam, we're not going to rang on you for that. But how crazy was that Lyoto Machida fight? Because I think that was at the time John Jones' most tough opponent. It wasn't Rampage, it wasn't Vitor. Well, Vitor to a degree. It wasn't Rashad. I think it was Lyoto because of that karate like style where he's like moving around.
I think Lyoto kind of made it the hardest for him. I think the toughest challenge for John in that time was Vitor because you know Vitor was cray because of the Jews. But yeah, the oh my god, the standing. I think that's probably the best image for me of John Jones's career. The fact that he choked him out standing and then drops the guy on the floor like a rag doll. It's just that I don't know. I think that's probably the most conquerous thing one man can do. You know what I mean? He could have killed the guy there. That's how strong and powerful and great he is. And he didn't, you know? So yeah. Oh my God. That fight was amazing.
Adam, what do you remember about that? Because this is when you were also really like you and like our friend Michael were really invested into MMA. This was like the golden era, as I call it.
You know, it's crazy to look back and think that Machida and John Jones fought, and then Machida and Chris Weidman had then fought. You know, It's kind of crazy to like look back and see that trajectory. I felt that Machida was probably one of the tougher challenges. You know, I'm a little bit more critical on John in the sense that, you know, I feel like, you know, the Rampage that he beat at the time and the Rashad he beat at the time and even the Shogun that he beat at the time weren't really at the peak of their careers anymore. You know, I believe that at that time, all of those guys had their best moments behind them. But I do remember thinking that victory over Machida was definitely a wake-up call that he is the new breed in the division and definitely a new force to be reckoned with. I don't really think that for me it was my favorite moment. I actually think that John, you know, being able to put that stamp on the feud with DC by not only knocking him out with that left high kick, but also getting takedowns on DC. I feel like those two moments of getting the takedowns and getting the KO against DC what else do you want in a feud with somebody that you despise? He's somebody who is at the Olympic level, and you took him down. And then, you know, part of John's game, he also knocked him out. So, you know, he two-timed him.
Yeah, yeah. But the choke on Machida, and then the spinning elbow. If I think about John Jones, this is what I see. You know what I mean? It's like these are the two images I get. So yeah, I still think he's the greatest fighter that has ever lived in the UFC era. And I think in every era, if you put John Jones there, he would have done stuff that other people wouldn't have had done then.
I also think two finishes that people don't talk enough of John Jones were the destruction of Vladimir Matsushenko and Brandon Vera. Those ground and pound finishes were one for the ages. The way these guys' faces looked after he beat the fuck out of them were unreal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those were the days. I mean, look, John's more of a grappler, but he's just got the perfect body of a striker too. Like, he neutralized Lyoto's karate pattern, and you know, it's just, you know, I just think I always say it like this: the best fighters are not the knockout artists; they're tacticians, and that's why where I put John. I would put also GSP up there, and even Gegard Mousasi to a degree too. Anderson. I mean, I know Adam's kind of like,
No,
but
I have no problem with Gegard. For me, bro, there's got to be 2 pound for pound lists. I mean, I'm sorry, bro, but like, you can't fucking put somebody who's been caught for roids on the greatest of all time list. Like, I'm sorry, but like, for me, you got Khabib, you got GSP, you know. Sorry, but Anderson and John Jones, in my opinion, they shit their legacy. That's the way I look at it.
That makes sense. Okay, you're entitled. That's cool. I'm not going to disagree or agree. It's that's the thing. But I would say, yeah, Khabib up there too. George, even Usman. I mean, would we say if Usman keeps winning and he keeps fighting these guys like in the welterweight division, whether it's by first time or rematch, I think he's going to supplant GSP as like the best welterweight. That's just me.
It's very possible. I mean, he should first start with maybe, you know, surpassing guys like Matt Hughes in terms of welterweight legacy before he should reach for, you know, GSP. But, you know, I think guys like Matt Hughes are definitely still way ahead of him. And I think that Usman's still just a little bit too young in the game. And unfortunately, I just think that we've seen a fighter like Usman too many times to be able to be completely invested in him.
That's the thing with Usman. He's not, he doesn't have anything special. He is just very good and decent at what he does. But he's just one of so many at the top right now. As you said, there's been a lot of fighters who kind of do the same thing, you know what I mean? There's nothing special about him, and that's what is really that's what really annoys me about myself when I look at Usman. I'm kind of always cheering for the other side, which is not fair because he's amazing. He's very, very good, very strong. But then there's always something around him that I'm like, yeah, I'm just not interested in you. You know what I mean? And it's too bad, because with a little extra on him, there would be nobody would have a conversation about him like this anymore.
Well, look, let me put it to you like this. I mean, you know, you look at Izzy, for example. The reason why people are so gravitated towards Izzy is because there's a flash, there's a flair. Predominantly, most MMA fans also like strikers over wrestlers. You know, like, put it this way, man. George actually got more clout for how he acted out of the ring than how he did in the ring. The reason why George is held to that standard is because he never got caught doing anything illegal. He never was deemed as you know, like a head case or somebody who's gonna go out and you know, be at the club and then like get caught drunk driving, like just somebody who's a true professional in whatever the case may be. So, you know, yeah, I see what you guys are saying for sure.
I would even put another guy that has good like kickboxing and striking would be Masvidal. I mean, yeah, he's old, but I mean, that's someone who's really like, talk about renaissance. Where does Masvidal like rank for you as an MMA striker right now for you two?
Well, look, Go ahead, Wes.
Well, yeah, thanks. He's a very, very good striker as well. I think he's one of the top guys in boxing sense, and especially if you look at the last fight he did with Usman, you see a lot of videos of him where he really uses the head movements and taking away with the elbows and the shoulders, taking away the punches. That means you're top level. I do think he's a little bit hyped up right now, but that's always, when you're on a win streak, you will always get hyped up by the UFC because that's, what's going to make them money. Look at the whole baddest motherfucker title he won. If you truly look at a bad motherfucker, it's one of the Diaz brothers. So, they should get the award for being who they are. He's top level, but he's definitely not the best striker in the UFC at the moment.
Definitely not the best striker in the UFC. I think it goes back to one of the conversations that we had where, as a MMA fighter, he's prominent, but, as a specialist, if we were to put him in a specific sport, would he be completely successful? Do I think that he could box with Canelo? Absolutely not. I don't think so. One of the things that I've actually been most impressed by my match that I think a lot of folks don't pay attention to is his wrestling. His wrestling is actually really fucking good, especially his wrestling defense, which is why the Usman fight wasn't that fun, because Masvidal kept nullifying Usman from being able to advance positions, which is why, just simple clinch work and cage wrestling and foot stomps were things that brought him, the keys to victory. So where do I rank him as a fighter? I definitely rank him high in MMA. But at the same time, if I take away the Darren Till knockout from you and I take away the Ben Askren flying knee, I don't know if we're even having this conversation in general. So, yeah.
I can remember when he was fighting Cerrone. And then at that time, I was like, I've always been a big Cerrone fan. So I was rooting for Cerrone, and then I was kind of upset that he got over him quickly. So I was like, if you look at that, he's like Cerrone, never gonna be the best at the, he's never gonna be the gorilla on the mountain. He's very good. You don't wanna fight him, but he's a very general fighter, not a specialist, as you really said well there, Adam. In any other sports, he wouldn't do as well as he's doing right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. But like the personality has really taken a hold because Wesley, you remember, people didn't really know Masvidal or they didn't like him. They thought, oh, this guy's like too thuggish, like he acts like too much of like a gangster. But then it's like, yeah, like he was like acting like that. He had his like little hotel run-in with Bisping, if you remember, like when they were talking, because Bisping burned the Cuba flag to like talk shit to Romero. But then like Masvidal comes back and knocks out Darren Till. It's like he's a new man. He's like he ditched the gangster attitude for like a more like corporate gangster, if you know what I mean, like the white collar kind of thing, like Scarface, Tony Montana. Like, say what you want, I fucking love it, and he's the only one who can pull off the Scarface entrance when he walks out.
I love it as well. I think it's a great look and a great attitude. Look, MMA is what have you done for me lately? And when you're on ESPN and you're on a highlight reel by winning via flying knee versus a guy like Funky Ben Askren, you're definitely going to get some headlines and some notoriety from it. And I think that Masvidal has the look and appeal to be able to milk that. And, I do, unfortunately, I just hope that it's not one of those things where in the end it's like we're just dealing with all hype, and then after these two title shots are over with Usman, the allure of Masvidal is then going to kind of go away, because that will devalue the product a little bit in the long run.
That's the thing with Masvidal as well. Yes, the thing he did to Ben Askren was amazing, and yes, Ben Askren was like a top guy brought into the UFC. So many great stuff about him, but who was he? You know what I mean? I was never convinced of Ben Askren. If you look at like Conor McGregor knocking out your Jose Aldo with a 13-second punch, I think that was so much bigger because Aldo was the reigning champ for 10 years, and then he got knocked out by the Irish Big Mouth. But then Ben Askren, Masvidal, they kind of bring it into the same level as that, and it really isn't. You know, Masvidal is a very good fighter, and Ben Askren really isn't. In all fairness, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, put it this way: after Jose Aldo got knocked out by Conor McGregor, he went on to try to fight for the bantamweight championship. When Ben Askren got knocked out by Jorge Masvidal, he ended up fighting Damian Maia, and now he's fighting Jake Paul in boxing. So,
yeah, there you go. Jake Paul, the new Mike Tyson, wasn't it? Yeah.
I don't know.
the new Jesus Christ is what I'm hearing,
Yeah. Yeah.
or the new sliced bread.
Exactly, the best thing since sliced bread, you know. And what's one of them now? Like Adam, like aren't they like buying Pokemon cards and like trying to sell? But it's for a good cause apparently. Like which one of them is like buying Pokemon cards?
Listen, Logan Paul spent like $2 million on like 2 boxes of Pokemon cards, and in one of the boxes actually found 2 Charizards in it, which is like basically each card is worth like $500K. Yeah, and he sold each pack on the box for $35,000. So yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. It's a little bit sad. How do you go from collecting Pokemon cards to then discussing you fighting Floyd Mayweather in an exhibition fight? But at the end of the day, I mean, it doesn't matter how big or small the platform is. People are talking about them. So
Hopefully we get that with this chat.
Exactly. Yeah, we get this things going. Honestly, guys, I guess because you know, like I only said would be like an hour and 15 minutes. It's already passed. Super fun doing this. I really want to thank you guys to coming on because we discussed everything from kickboxing. I'm glad we got to really have this conversation. Part 2 and 3, whatever. We'll always do this again. Maybe do a Fightpanion, even though there's a time difference. I like to call this the Fightpanion series. So. Yeah. Guys, where can they connect with you if they ever want to like for your platforms?
go ahead, Wes.
All right then. Yeah, the platforms will be Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. On Facebook, you can find me on Wesley Jansen, on Doyo Hokori Mayo is what my club is called, or on KRT Tips and Tricks. Then on Instagram is going to be the same, Wesley Jansen, Hokori Mayo, or KRT Tips and Tricks. And then on YouTube, we have our own page of KRT Tips and Tricks. And this is where we do the KR Talks as well. And in the KR Talks, we were inspired by you, Drew. We are inspired by some of the other podcasts we were invited to, and we is me and Darren Stringer. And we just talk with karate legends about how they did this, and we don't look at organizations, we don't look at stripes, we don't look at all of the hierarchy. We look at who we have in front of us, and what should they be sharing with the world, and we just hope to be a platform for that.
Thank you. I'm very humbled by that, Wesley. I appreciate the kind words. Adam, where can people find you?
Instagram and Twitter at Adam Caplan 13. On YouTube, you could find me at the Unanimous Decision Podcast and the Unanimous Decision Podcast on Apple and or iTunes rather, and Spotify. And it was a pleasure coming on, Andy. You know, it's always a pleasure being on with you. We were doing a couple of shows together with your old series called Beyond the Fight Podcast. And the Drewsperience has clearly gone to another level, which I congratulate you on. And, you know, breaking in that niche with the Kyokushin community, breaking in that niche with, you know, the Fight City of Montreal and the prominent fighters that come out of it. You know, I applaud you, and it's always a pleasure to be on the show with you, bro.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Guys, if you want to subscribe to my show, Drew Nomad 7 is my personal Drewsperience on Instagram. So I use Instagram mainly. My YouTube channel is The Drewsperience. So make sure to like, subscribe, share. It's to just raise the bar of martial arts. But I also do 20% everything else. So that could be anything from anime, gaming, movies, you name it. But 80% combat sports is the head niche. So guys, make sure to subscribe, share. Man, I'm struggling with my speech today. Please follow these two if you guys like combat sports. They know their shit. Like they really do. They have PhDs in their fields. And make sure, and if you really like it, make sure to also follow KRT and Unanimous Decision because they deserve to get built up too. It's not about me. It's about my guests.
One more thing I'd like to add. Thanks again for this experience on the Drew experience, and it was great to have a chat with you, Adam. It's been a big honor to just spend an hour and a half with you two. Thanks a lot, guys.
Likewise, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.